I too have constituents who are grossly concerned about this. Now, while it is cautiously good news that this has been delayed, part of what the Secretary of State seems to be saying is that the impact locally outweighs the benefit to the nation. This is what I myself and all the organisations and local people have been saying. So therefore, the question remains as to why a delay will change that position. Does he have any thoughts on what that might be and what we can do to get to an answer before we come to the end of March?
Well, I thank my honourable friend who has worked assiduously in this matter over the months and, in fact, years when this unwelcome proposal was brought. In answer to his question, I think what we can do is, as I put to the Minister, Labour are now in charge, and I would be very grateful that the Minister meets both of us to explain why there's been this decision which isn't the normal decision in these processes. When the Planning Inspectorate makes a recommendation, it's more often than not that the recommendation is approved, and when they reject or consider withholding consent, which is very rare for these matters, again, the Minister usually does that. So having a meeting with the Minister might help answer my honourable friend's questions.
For me, in looking at this whole project, that was the key deficit when we made our appeal to the inspector, and it seems like that's been upheld, because although there's the environmental impact, although there's the infrastructure impact, which will help our communities, the fundamental basis was the premise of what was being put forward was faulty because the information simply wasn't there, deficit, and there was a hostile approach which was named by some of these statutory bodies in the way in which getting information out was really difficult. So does he believe that this is the reason we should not go ahead? Because you can't even make a judgment call on this basis, which fits with what the Planning Inspector have come out to say, that this shouldn't go ahead.
I entirely agree with my honourable friend, and there's no surprise in that, because both of us have worked so assiduously over the years on this particular matter, particularly behind the scenes, when we've highlighted to previous government ministers the very issues that my honourable friend has raised. And I would ask politely if the Minister's able to expand on why the Secretary of State requires an extension when there is overwhelming evidence, as the Planning Inspectorate report seems to suggest, that this development should not go ahead. Yes, of course.
I'm grateful that he's making some fantastic points, but one of the key points, and thanks, is the Planning Inspectorate. Many of the public felt that this was a done deal and this is something that's done to them. Can I thank the Planning Inspectorate for seeing that they are now minded to refuse consent, to listen to the fact that our communities have been heard because we know the deficits, we've seen the deficits, and now proved those deficits. And I would hope that that will go some way to the Secretary of State making that decision. But there is that anxiety now with this very unusual delay for several months. I'd be interested to know in the Minister, when she's winding up, how we can allay the fears that this is going to be ridden roughshod over, given the unusual nature of what we have in place.
I entirely agree, which is why I think it was important to put on record at the outset that there is still anxiety among thousands of Leicestershire residents saying, well, if the Planning Inspectorate have said withhold consent, why has it not been done?